Hey, hello, everybody. I'm Del Howison, writer and co-owner of Dark Delicacies, and we're here to talk with Joe R. Lansdale in just a minute. Our engineering director is David Markland, and we're glad you were able to join us for this. I'm not going to do a lot of background, a lot of history of Joe because it's probably been done to death, and you can find it easily online. Look up any of his background, look up all of his back books, because if I just started talking about his back books, we would be here just talking about his back books. Also, there is a really amazingly well done documentary film that if you get a chance to see it, you can. All Hail the Popcorn King, which is all about Joe, and it's Joe about Joe. So that's kind of nice. So we get him popped in here, and we'll start talking with Joe Lansdale about his new books. And hey, there he is.
Hey, man. Just a warning that I have popped off the internet a few times. So if I disappear, it's due to the hurricane, which, though not close to me, is close enough.
Yeah, you guys, is it raining where you are or no?
Not at this very moment, but it has been raining. It rained last night, and it's rained really hard this morning. It's been, intermittent. It comes and goes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about your two latest books, but prior to that, I don't know if people know, but of course, you and I have spoken about awards, and you've got a box full of them over here in the corner of tons of awards. But I guess my first question is, were you afraid you were going to die? Because once you start winning achievements, sometimes people are going, what the hell is this? I'm not over. And some of your lifetime achievements were like 10 years ago.
More than that, some of like the one that they give at the Comic Con, I forget, Inkwell Award. I got that, good grief, probably 20 years ago. And I thought, well, goodness, do they know something I don't know? And I got one from the Texas Legends or something like that. I don't know. And then, of course, the horror community, you're glad of them, but it is a little bit startling. You thought, well, am I done?
I don't know. At the rate that you write, you're never going to be done. I don't think you ever stop writing. Do you take breaks between your books?
Not often. Well, I might take a day, maybe two. Sometimes, and I have under certain circumstances taken longer, but it's rare. Usually, by the time I finish something, I'm rolling right into another one. That's just the way I work. I keep myself busy, but then you have to keep in mind that I don't work more than 3 hours a day. So it's not like I'm working, 24/7. I'm just working consistently every day. And it's rare when I take off. And sometimes I do, but even in, Christmas or stuff like that, I'm usually up before everything gets going. And I've already knocked out my minimum of pages, which is 3 to 5, and sometimes more. So to me, not a lot changes. And it's rare that I take a day off. And that leaves me the rest of the day after 3 hours to read and, watch films and exercise, do martial arts, which is the thing I really miss because I haven't been able to do it in months. And I teach part-time. I have like private classes, so I do miss that. But otherwise, I'm busy, but I'm not obsessed. I'm passionate, but not obsessed.
Yeah, well, you don't ever have Karen storming into the room going, can we do something else?
No, she's always been very supportive of what I do. But, I'm also the kind of writer, if the phone rings, I can answer it and turn right around and go back to doing. Or if she comes in and needs something, or the kids did when they were, smaller and at home, they knew that I was writing and I should be left alone. But if something came up, I'm pretty easy that way. I can be interrupted and go right back to it, and that doesn't mean that I'm, putting a sack over its head and doing it for old glory. I do it because I love it, and I want it to sound good. I want it to read good, and I'm very interested in the way the prose sounds, and the kind of atmosphere and the kind of echo that it gives the story.
Well, you're a pantser, right? You don't do a lot of outlining. You kind of start writing and you just go with it.
Yeah, I don't do any outlining. I sometimes jot notes down, remember their eyes are blue. I have a bad habit of maybe having somebody that's a peripheral character and I'll forget what their name is and I'm 230 pages in, so I'll just put 3 or 4 X's there. And so I just have those X's. And then when I usually polish that at the end of the day or the next day, because I don't do multiple drafts either. I essentially do one draft, but if you realize that I'm polishing it every day, no telling how many drafts I'm doing, but I do them daily. And then I will read some of it the next day to get into it. But usually I have this last polish, and that's when I might take those X's and figure out who belongs in those X's.
Yeah, sometimes I have to put side notes and go, the name of the town they visited was X, so that I don't have to go through the entire novel to find where I put the name of the town.
I have this, I just started doing it. And what I do is I write all the names down, so-and-so,
Right.
This is this name, or a town's name, or stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that I forget, but I've always been that way. But my memory for the story and for the plot, for whatever reason, has always been good. When I get older, and I'm already damn old, but if I get older, I'll probably end up, having to make a lot more notes.
Oh, yeah, the older we get. So one of your newest books is Of Mice and Minestrone, which is
Correct.
Hap and Leonard short stories of their early years. I think it's 5 stories. Yep. And you didn't write those in a row, did you? I mean, those are written over time and you probably collected them, or how did that come about?
I wrote a bunch of them back to back. I did have like a couple of them, I think, but none of them had ever been published but one. Only one of the stories had ever been published, and it was called The Watering Shed. And it was in a magazine called Full Bleed, which was out of IDW. And Dirk Wood is the editor of those. So there's supposed to be, I've been in every issue they've done. I think there's supposed to be more issues if things go well. But outside of that, I sat down and wrote all the stories back to back for it. And but that's the only exception. I just was in that mood and I wrote them. And I've been writing Leonard stories lately, so those may find a collection eventually too.
Yeah. Well, did the ideas or the plots of each one of those stories already set in your head, or did they come as you were writing?
They came as I was writing them.
Yeah.
I don't tend to have much in the way of plots in my head. The thing I do is that I just go to bed at night and I get up the next morning and my subconscious has done it. I'll tell you an interesting thing, and I have this happen now and again in various forms. But this morning I was sound asleep. Man, I was sleeping good, and I heard a knock. And I sat up and there was no knock. There was nobody in the house. There was nothing. And it was my mind said, get your ass out of bed. It's 5 a.m. Go in there and go to work. So I did. I went to work. And by 9 o'clock, well, before that, about 8 o'clock, probably 8:30, time I had breakfast and coffee and all that, I had 12 pages. And but it was my subconscious telling me, now's it, get up. And it's like when I'm really tired, I have this weird thing that happens. And I'm sure there are others. I hope there are other people that have it, or I'm just screwy. But if I'm driving along, when I was traveling a lot, if I got tired, I would see like a dog or a person run out in front of me on the road, and I would slow down. And that was my subconscious telling me that it's time to stop. And if I pushed beyond that and I got really tired, I began to see a row of faceless men on the right side of the road, just walking in a line. It wasn't scary. It was just, I knew that, and I knew it was my imagination, but I also knew that it was a warning that you need to pull over and rest, get a motel room or whatever, if I was driving across country or something of that nature. So I've always had those kind of little things. I've had the visual, I guess they're hallucinations of a sort, and I've had the audio hallucinations. And I think part of that's all tied to my imagination. I also have Tourette's, which is always interesting, and perhaps that has something to do with it. I don't know that it does. I have such a mild case that you wouldn't know I had it unless you knew me really, really well.
Right. Well, I didn't know you had it, and I've only known you for about 2 decades.
Yeah, very few people do. You have to be around me a lot because I don't have a severe case, my son and daughter also have it, but they have I think they're probably lighter than me. My father had it. He had just a little bit more than me, and his father had it. And so it's one of those wonderful things that we pass down.
Yeah.
But it has no effect. It has no effect on me. It's never had any effect on my life whatsoever. And I thought everybody did it. I thought everybody had what we called chills. That's what we knew it as when I was growing up. My father would talk about having a chill. So I thought, well, I'm having a chill. I'm not having a rigor. That's a different thing in the South, but I'm having a chill. And so now I realize that that's what it is. And I yip a little and I bark a little when I'm really tired. And I have to be really tired. And so it's even possible that the general diagnosis of it being Tourette's is some, other form of it or something else. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's just that, and a lot of people have it. I have a lot of my friends. Neil Barrett Jr. had it, and I won't name others because they may not want it to be known. Although why I wouldn't know why. But it's a mild thing for me, and that's fortunate because it doesn't affect my life in any manner, shape, or form.
Yeah, there's a guy that works across the street from Dark Delicacies at the mechanic shop over there, and he's got an extreme form of it. So he can be walking out to the car, and suddenly, his head does a shake, and you'll hear these swear words come flying out of him.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's over it.
Yeah. Well, we've always joked that my nickname is Dog because if I go, I'll do that. I'll bark like that. That obviously wasn't a real one, but that's the kind of thing that happens. Or I'll just and I think Casey has a little bit of the neck jerk, and Keith I think has the neck jerk, and Casey will bark a little. So
Does
and my wife will
your
say, "Stop
dog
that
at
barking."
all?
Yeah, it does. It has. My wife will go, "Stop that barking now. Quit that. I'm gonna put you outside."
Now, mice and minestrone. We'll get off that to your new one in a second. That kind of wraps the Hap and Leonard cycle for you, at least at the moment, right?
At the moment, I do believe that there is a book full of Leonard stories, and I believe there's one more book of Leonard and Hap that takes up right after Mice and Minestrone up until Savage Season. And, there are areas where I have conflicted with established, things, but not purposely, but I have. But I believe there's room for that. Plus, I have 3 more novels I'm pretty sure I'll write. And it's not because I have any idea what those novels are about. It's just I've always had I may know in my subconscious, let's put it like that, because I've always had a really good instinct to know that I'm going to write about this, even though if I don't know how I'm going to write about it and couldn't explain it. And if I did explain it, I never would be able to write about it. That's just the way it is for me. If I talk about it, unless I've already written it. Now, if I've already written it, I can do it. But if I haven't written it and I talk about it, I feel burned out. It's the same thing when sometimes they'll insist on a outline, like in film and whatever. It'll generally just kill my interest in doing it. Or too many questions about what I'm doing, or the publishers we want to publish the first 50 pages. We want to look at the first 100 pages or 50 pages or whatever. If I have that done, I can give it to them, but I always feel uncomfortable because if they say anything about it, they've interfered into my story.
Right.
Because and the truth is I'm always willing to make changes of anything that doesn't work, but I really don't give a fuck what they think. I want to write the story I want. Then when I get done, then I care what they think. But when I'm doing it, I just don't believe in that because I think it can affect how you approach the story. And then when you get done, then you should be open to listening to advice. And if it's good advice, I'll take it. And if it's not, or it's advice that, I just don't quite understand, I won't do it. Sometimes if it's advice that I don't think makes a difference one way or another, I'll do it. I call that throwing them a bone. And probably they throw me a few by letting me have things they don't like. So we're probably both tossing bones,
Yeah, when I'm writing, I want to be as surprised or fresh as the reader, and that's why I don't know.
And when you show it to somebody like that or partial, then you think, well, what if I go back and change his name? It can be just little things like that, Yeah,
you feel like you're stuck to it.
Right. You feel like you're giving them something before that should be seen, Yep. Yeah, let's keep the light off while I'm undressing right now, and then when I'm completely, we'll flick it on. You'll be horrified, but we're gonna flick it on.
Talk about surprise. Okay, so
talk about surprise. Surprise.
The other new book, which just came out last Tuesday during this conversation that we're having, is More Better Deals, Mo Better
Yep.
Deals, and
More
it's
Better Deals.
a standalone kind of a noir, kind of a James Cain kind of thingy.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
What
Definitely
made you
is.
start writing this one, since you don't hold the idea in your head ahead of time?
It's hard to say, you know, and I always want to buffer that idea with the thought that your subconscious probably holds it in your head, and your subconscious does outline and plot and plan, but you're not aware of it. And for me, it's a deeper and better form of plotting and planning, and it's so much more versatile, because if it realizes you're doing something in a story that can go another way, it will throw it out there, and 9 times out of 10 it's right. I very seldom had to go back and just do a lot of revisions since I started writing this way. I didn't always write this way, but probably the last 30 something years or 35 years I have. And so I think you all are always plotting. And many years ago, in the early 1980s, I came up with a title called More Better Deals. And I knew it was about a used car salesman. I had no idea what the story was, but I didn't write it. And then one morning I got up and I just thought of that title. And then I thought, you know, that would be a James Cain type story, because it's this used car salesman. And I wanted to do something noirish and something that was kind of a nod to the noir books with the same feel and the same attitude. So I used that kind of as a framework, but I went to town inside of it, doing the kind of things I want to do, writing it the way I want to write it, using dialogue the way I wanted to use it, and having a number of little surprises and different attitudes along the way slipped into it that you know, I never saw in the Cain novels or whatever. And some people will say it's also Jim Thompson, but I love what Jim Thompson I love, and the rest of it I don't care for. So you couldn't call me a fanatic Jim Thompson fan, but I can see how it has, you know, echoes of that as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I had a fan give me a question to ask you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to know about the standing of Bubba Nosferatu. Do you know anything about that?
There will be no Bubba Nosferatu, not with Bruce and I anyway. Don has the right, so you know it could be possible that at some point he'll make that film or do some kind of thing with TV. But you know, I never really wanted there to be a sequel. I never thought it was a good idea. I think it's a strong and powerful story that you know, wouldn't necessarily play to a sequel. Now, I did write a prequel novel called Bubba Hotep and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers, or Bubba something and the Cosmic. That's it, Bubba and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers. There's no Hotep in it, but that was a kind of a prequel. But you know, even that one, I'm surprised I wrote, because I never thought there ought to be a prequel or a sequel. But it's like we were talking. It's one of those ideas that came to me. I got up, it wrote itself. It was originally just going to be a short story, and I thought it would be fun. Took off and was a complete novel. There was a comic book version of it. There also a Bubba Meets the Evil Dead comic series, but I really don't think we need another film of it. I think it's kind of a classic in its own way. I think everything came together right. It's probably the film that's most like my fiction, although they've been very good to me and very close in other adaptations, Cold in July, Hap and Leonard, Incident on Off a Mountain Road, and so on. But that one, when I see that, I feel like I'm looking at 98% of my story. And the changes are mostly things that I think were done because they couldn't afford special effects, and some things that Don felt maybe, you know, framed it a little better. I don't know exactly, but I don't have any complaints about it. I think it's a really, you know, good adaptation. So I was very fortunate.
And now,
but as far as I know, no Bubba Nosferatu. Yeah.
And now for the elephant in the room, which is, if you're writing modern stories now, do you have to include the coronavirus?
No, you don't have to, but you may, and you may not even know you're doing it. And the reason I say that is that when you're writing, and there's a particular, whether it's a you know, a virus, or it's a political ill that's in the air, or whatever it is, it finds its way through you into the work, but maybe not literal. I think I could be wrong about that. And but I believe that's true. And as been said about most science fiction, if you're writing about something on another planet or time travel, you're always still writing about your own time. You're writing about what's going on then. If you look at Solent Green, the novel was Make Room by Harry Harrison. He was writing about overpopulation, and they did a movie adaptation, people wearing masks and stuff like that. And you look at it now and you think, oh my God, is Solent Green next? Which if anybody's seen the movie or read the book, has some idea what that's about, although the book's a little different. But he was really writing about overpopulation, and which we were discussing a lot during that era, which there were a number of nonfiction books out about overpopulation and about using up the environmental resources. And everybody was excited about it, but then disco came in and everybody forgot it. Not me, but
I was in a dentist recently having a cap put on, and they laid me back in the chair, and up in the corner was a TV, and they were playing documentaries, I think things that Robert Redford had produced about nature. And when they showed this field of flowers, I thought, oh my God, it's Soylent Green. I'm never getting out of this place.
That's right. Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is I think you're always writing about your time, and maybe not just the virus, but More Better Deals, I think, is a really good noir thriller, but I'm also writing about other things there. I don't want to get into those too much.
I think Joe got a freeze. He's back. He's back. You froze for a second.
Yeah. And I think it was a vehicle for a lot of other stuff too that I could use that framework to write about.
Right. All right. Last question before we go away here. Is there a genre you haven't written in that you want to write in?
No, I don't think so. And I even wrote a romance story for Ferrari magazine that was about 1,000 words long. It was, and I wrote a kind of failed romance story for an Italian publication too. And Ferrari magazine, it was done in English, but I think it comes through Italy. So I've written romance and I've written, science fiction and fantasy and horror and Western or historical. I've written the different branches of those things. But most of the time I don't think of myself as doing that literally. I just think of myself as writing Lansdale books and stories and following what interests me, which is in some ways a great way to make a career. And in other ways, it's a very difficult kind of way because people don't know what to expect, and to me, that's a good thing. But a lot of people want to read the same book over and over or the same type of book. If I was, I think Lee Child does Jack Reacher just fine. But if I had to get up and write a Jack Reacher or anything of that nature yearly, I just go crazy. But if I do a Hap and Leonard and come in and do another one, maybe do 3 or 4 in a row like I did last, which is the most I've done in a row, and then come back 4 or 5 years later after doing other things and do another, it's not unsatisfying. It's beautiful. It's fun. And I love doing short stories, which also gives me that break. So yeah, it's not a thing to me about genres, whether I've written this genre or not written that genre. It's whether I have written and whether I have done the best I can every time out. And I can be frivolous in one book, like the Ned the Seal books are totally frivolous. And I can be more serious with things like The Bottoms or A Fine Dark Line, Sunset and Sawdust. I can be somewhere in the middle with the Hap and Leonard novels. And I can write just a good noir like this one. And those social issues will slip in. If we got a minute, I'll tell you a little brief thing that I remember.
Sure, I can always edit you out.
Yeah, I would. So Theodore Sturgeon, and I'm not sure if this story is apocryphal or if the way I heard it was actually right. I think it's probably apocryphal. But the story is that Sturgeon, back during the McCarthy era, wanted to write something about it, and he just couldn't do it. He was overwhelmed with it because it was so overwhelming, which is what I think why it's hard to write about the virus or politics in the moment. But he really wanted to do it. And Gold, H.L. Gold, who was the editor at Galaxy, he may have been somewhere else before then, but supposedly Sturgeon was telling this to the editor, and the editor said, well, I know how you can do that. And Sturgeon said, well, how? He said, look, here's what you do. you go home and you sit down and you start writing a story about this guy standing at a bus stop or on the sidewalk, and this bus pulls up and the door opens and this beautiful woman gets out, and he is so enraptured by her that though he doesn't want to be, creepy or stalker like, he can't help but kind of follow her. Now go home and write that. And Sturgeon, what? And he said, yeah, go home and write that. And what Sturgeon, if according to the apocryphal aspect of the story, realized, and they may have told it 100 different writers that maybe supposedly done this, but what it was telling you was that if you've got something in your mind that you're dealing with, or something that you feel is important, no matter what you write, it will find its way into that. And I think that's the lesson that was trying to be taught there. And I think it's fairly accurate. I think that's how it often works.
Huh. Well, fan Veda Renee has popped up a question wondering what your inspiration for characters of color is. And do you have a problem, or do you approach them differently?
No, I approach them like I know them. And I think we have to understand the cultural aspects are different, but I don't think there are different races. I think there are different skin colors. And I think we make that a race a thing, unfortunately. But I think that, I grew up in the South, but I grew up working with Black people and Hispanic people to a great degree, because I did those same jobs. I did, field work and things like that. So
you worked in a chair factory.
I worked in aluminum.
Oh, no, the storm's attacking Joe again. Let's see if he pops back through here. But in his early days, I was reading on Joe's bio. He worked in a aluminum chair factory, and that was kind of an interesting thing. For those of you that want to deal with his catalog and read all of his back books, you've got a lot of reading to do. But go online and pop it up, and his entire catalog will come out. He's also probably has about 10 or 12 of those that have been made into films, including some of his short stories. And there's some really excellent work there. We've got another viewer question coming up here. When Joe pops back up, we'll hit it again. But in the meantime, I encourage you, there's joelansdale.com. You can go there. That's his website. And you can absolutely find a whole lot of back stuff. And occasionally he publishes free short stories there for you to read. I know he did one recently. I had it written down here, called Dread Island. So that's a pretty good thing. Get some free Lansdale that way. We'll give him another minute here or something. And if he doesn't pop up, then we'll just sign it off. But it's a hurricane coming through the Gulf, hitting parts of Texas. Joe is not in the line of the hurricane, but it's affecting the electrical grid and many other things. So let me check with Mr. Director here. Are you seeing anything over there, sir, that shows Joe is able to get back in, or do you think he's off the grid? See, I do this because Gary Owens used to do that. It looks like Joe.
Can you hear me, Dale?
I hear you now.
Yeah, I'm on my phone actually. No, but what I was saying was that I think that we have to feel open to write about anything and any other group. Otherwise, we start segregating our stories where you'll just have the stories about some singular white guy, musing, or black guy, or black woman, or white woman, or trans, or whatever. And I think that we have to be inclusive. I think we have to, if we're going to be diverse and inclusive, then we have to be just that, or otherwise we end up, I don't know why I'm not getting my camera here right there, or otherwise we just end up with stories about ourselves, and we have created another segregated idea about society, whether it's done in fiction or it's done in movies or what have you. I think we're at a point where it's really good that we're being diverse and that we're bringing all these other aspects to film in a greater way and to books in a greater way. But the real plan is for it to become a more natural aspect, because it becomes a more normal acceptance of differences in people. And so when I write, I never think, oh, I can't write about that, because I've certainly known Black people, I've certainly known women, and I've certainly have never known werewolves, but I've written about them once or twice. But the point is, you do the best you can in that, and the readers can decide. But I also think that we make too much about our differences, and we have more similarities. When I was growing up, you know, a lot of the Black people I grew up around, they lived the same way we did, except just because of my skin being paler, I had more opportunities. But I understood them better in the sense that we were all poor, we were all struggling, so we have more in common than we have against each other. And I hate seeing things constantly, be it, you know, right wing or left wing, trying to separate us, or trying to make one group, you know, antagonistic toward the other. We don't need that.
That's absolutely right. All right, David Pascal is asking, are there any adaptations in the works for your drive-in series?
That was a hard one to answer, because there is interest and there was something kind of going on. But to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if anything's going to come of it. You know, I have this thing in my head that eventually the drive-in will become a film or a TV series. I think it'd make a better TV series. And let me see if I got you here on a bigger screen. Let me get in here.
You don't want me on a bigger screen, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I'm scary enough. I need a.
Look, I'm on a bigger screen. Oh, there you are.
But what was the question? Shit, I forgot.
The drive-in series.
Oh yeah, the drive-in series. Yeah, I think it will be eventually. You know, and right now, you know, the Thicket was supposed to start shooting in April with Peter Dinklage, and they were all ready to go, and the virus came along. And I was making progress on one that I was going to direct, and the virus came along. And so, you know, who knows what's going to happen with film right now. But I am, I would say, reasonably certain that we will eventually find normalcy, but it's just not going to be tomorrow. You know, it's going to be a while, but we're going to go back into films. We're going to go back into books. And if people would accept limitations now, then we can get out of this quicker. But when people keep trying to say, you know, it's not me, it won't affect me, or, you know, you're affecting other people possibly, it just keeps spreading. I mean, obviously they're wrong, or it wouldn't keep spreading. And people I know who very much, you know, were against wearing masks are in the hospital with ICU and stuff like that. Friends of mine, you know, but have a totally different view on that, or did. They don't anymore. And if we can do that, we can get back to normal, and maybe we can get some of these films made, and you know, have publishing be a little bit more like it used to be, where I can come to your bookstore and play with all the toys and stuff.
That's right. Well, I think everything's going to happen. It's just going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. It's going to be different for a while. You know, the thing is when the disease is over, it's over, and we go back to normal unless we have another disease, which, you know, certainly could happen. It's not the first time it's happened, and it probably won't be the last. But I don't see this as a permanent existence, just because I just don't think that's going to be likely. I think there will be a vaccine. I think eventually that you know, things will happen that will diminish the disease, like a vaccine. And over time, you know, things will slip back to normal, but we'll have a new caution that I think we haven't had before.
Right. Well, I really appreciate your time, Joe. And good luck with the new books, and stay safe. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Dale.
Bye.